Are there marketing tasks that need to be done for your company, but you just don't have the time or enough people to help? Do you hate managing social media? Are you curious about starting a podcast? This episode is hosted by the founder of GetLeverage.com, Nick Sonnenberg. Leverage is a premier marketing platform that pairs you with a team of experts for any big or small project that you want to outsource. On this episode of the Leverage Podcast, Nick sits down with Alex Charfen, a master at helping entrepreneurs and CEOs optimize their business practices. This episode's focus is learning the 5 most important things that will prevent you from scaling your business. Alex has appeared on almost every major media outlet in print and on TV, and is the author of the best-selling book, Entrepreneurial Personality.
Welcome back to the Leverage Podcast. I'm Nick Sonnenberg, and today I have a special guest, a friend of mine, Alex Charfen. We're going to kind of just do a quick bio here and go straight to it because he has so much knowledge to drop on us today. Alex and I, though, met at Joe Polish's Genius Network event years ago, and actually on one of our first interactions, you gave me a copy of your book, EPT, Entrepreneurial Personality Type, and this was back before it was on Amazon, where you had to get that physical book and you had to write down your name in the book, and then you had to give it to someone else. So you could only get the book by gifting it. And it actually circulated Leverage. I don't know if I ever told you that.
That's super cool.
So anyways, I'm super excited to be speaking to you today because the stuff that you're doing at your company, Charfen, easy to remember, I think it's so important and stuff that every company could benefit from. And you're really helping teams take their organization to the next level. And I think it's going to add a lot of value. So thank you for joining today.
Thanks, Nick. It's really awesome to be here, and especially to be here hanging out with you, man.
No, thanks. Pleasure's all mine. So do you mind just to give us a quick, I want to go into the tactics and strategies that you help people with, but what's your quick background so that we have a bit of context, and how did this company come about?
Sure, you got it, Nick. So I've always, when I was younger, I always ran businesses. And in my 20s, I grew a business extraordinarily fast and very large. We got up to $250 million in sales, and I had 15 offices combined in the US and Latin America, and a very large team.
Jeez, what kind of business was that?
A manufacturer's rep firm, a consultancy. So we were outsourced sales for computer and consumer electronics firms. And then we also eventually got into, we had an event for Latin America. We did packaging, we did consulting, we did entire market rollouts, distribution rollouts. And we worked with companies like Fuji, Logitech, Targus, Belkin, Microsoft. So large names in the consumer and computer electronics industry hired us to be their outsource. For some, we were all of Latin America. For some, we did their sales. And in growing that business, I completely and totally overwhelmed myself. I almost died. By the time I was 32, I was 300 pounds. Nobody believes that now, but I have pictures. So I was 300 pounds. I was on 5 different prescription drugs. I was about to go on my 6th. And I realized I hadn't done it the right way. And it was brutal. It was crushing. So I ended up meeting my wife, Katie. And as fast as I could, I sold that business because it was literally killing me. And I decided I wanted to do it a different way. And, even in that business, some of the stuff we created in that company, we still use today. But, I knew I started with the assumption that there is a way to grow a business without killing yourself. And you do not have to grind yourself down in order to grow an enterprise and make a contribution, make a massive dent in the universe. And so that's really where this comes from. It comes from my own personal pain 16 years ago or 15 years ago. And then figuring out what are the foundational things that a business needs to have so that a CEO doesn't get overwhelmed. Because here's the reality, Nick. Every visionary CEO knows they're a leader, but also they'll tell you they're terrible managers. People like you and I, we're not good at managing. It's a detailed process that is just crushing to our souls.
It's really profound. I was just at Genius Network, and we were having a drink with Howard Getson, Mike Koenigs, and Gordy Ball, and we were having just a boys chat, and Howard said to me, "You know what your problem is? You're a great leader, but you're a crap manager. You need to hire a manager." And I was never thought of the difference, but there is a huge difference between the two.
A huge difference. And so here's what we do, Nick. We've created the processes, the systems, and the strategies that allow a CEO to lead their company from a leadership position and avoid the management position. And we have structures within a company where the structure drives the business rather than a quote unquote manager. Definitely have leadership, but here's the challenge. Visionary entrepreneurs need far more help than anybody else to get to our full destination. Like, you have dreams that are far bigger than what you're doing today. And I have outcomes in the world that are far bigger than what I'm doing. I call it the entrepreneur's dilemma. We need more help than the average person, but any request for help leaves us feeling vulnerable and exposed. And so what we do is we build the systems and structures that get entrepreneurs past that feeling and into the place where they can actually lead a team and make a massive impact on a team. What I always tell people is, if you can lead clients, if you can lead a room when you're speaking, if you can lead, in any situation, we can show you how to lead in a business, grow a team, and build a world-changing empire.
No, it's so true and so needed. And in my experience with consulting people from a different vantage point, much more on like tech and systems and when and how to best utilize technology that's out there. I've seen a lot of issues in companies too. And this inefficient organizational structures, not having efficient meetings, not having cadences for meetings, not having agendas for meetings, not having the right person in the right seat, not having transparency and accountability. These are all things that sound like obvious and that every company should have, but it's easier said than done. And especially as companies are going more and more remote, that adds further challenges that, it's not impossible, but it's something that sounds easier said than done. And it's something that if you get it right, it totally changes the trajectory of your business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. That old saying, you need to stop working in your business and start working on your business. Like, let's be honest. When I was younger and I would hear that, I'd want to punch the person who said it in the 100%. Face. Because what are you talking about? That's some weird platitude that doesn't tell me what to do functionally at all. It just makes me feel bad.
I haven't had a salary for 18 months, but I'm going to work on my business and just wait for it to happen, right?
Right. And, I'll stop answering the phone while I work on my business. I'll stop delivering the product and doing everything else while I work on my business. And so what we have created is the systems and the structures that allow entrepreneurs to consistently analyze their business for what they need. And what we look at it is in our analysis, we've found 5 foundational things that stop a company that should scale from scaling. And when I say a company that should scale, and here's why I preface it that way, Nick, there is millions of things that can stop a company from scaling. You can have an addicted owner. You can have, not enough funding, not in the right market, not a good avatar, not the right product. We can go on and on and on. But what we deal with at our company is companies that should be scaling. We work with companies who have opportunity, who understand their avatar. They're creating a market effect. So they're actually getting a successful effect, but they're not scaling. And we've whittled it down to, we think it's just 5 simple things that if you install them in your business, it'll start growing fast. And
what are the 5 things?
So let's start. I'll go high level and then we can jump into some details. So the first thing is a strategic plan. 99% of businesses out there, especially small businesses, have no strategic plan whatsoever. And that causes massive problems. We can get into detail in a second. The second one
plan is different than vision, because a lot of people talk about vivid visions and missions.
Don't get me started on vivid vision.
But I just wanted to it sounds like there's a distinction for you between strategic plan and what other people call vision. Is that right?
100%. Nick, here's the problem with vision. Vision's a dream. Vision's a fantasy. And the problem with what so many entrepreneurs are doing is they're trying to lead by this massive vision. And then what are we going to do today?
Yeah.
And, most of the time it's we're going to go save the world, billions of people, do all this stuff, whatever pie in the sky.
I'm going to save 1 billion hours and then go to Mars and mount an asteroid and come back.
Exactly. And, you listen to people these days and it's gone from we're going to help millions of people now billions of people. And so, you get to this place where here's what entrepreneurial teams feel when they hear that. When they hear, here's this massive vision, and then here's what we do today, they think you're crazy. I've been on the other side of the room. When the entrepreneur walks out, I've stayed in the room with the team, and the team looks at each other and says, what the heck was that guy or girl talking about? How are we going to ever get there? It sounds nuts. And so here's the contrast, Nick. When you go into a locker room, and I know this is a hard term, but check this out. You go into a locker room of an NFL football team on the first day of the season. You walk up to a rookie and you say, hey, what are the goals around here? He will tell you like that. Hall of Fame, Super Bowl, win the season, win the month, win this weekend, and here's what I have to do today to get to the Hall of Fame. There's a straight line to the ultimate goal in that business. You look at an entrepreneurial company, it's we have a vision, show up. And then you go and ask most people, hey, what are the goals around here? And they're like, survive, stay out of the CEO's way, make sure that we're doing what we need to do on a daily basis, don't break anything. They don't really know. And so what we show people how to do is to go from a client-centric mission to annual goals, to quarterly targets, to 30-day goals, to weekly commitments where rubber meets the road. And then we have a daily huddle where every single day you have productivity. And so in a entrepreneurial business, you have that Hall of Fame to day in the entrepreneurial business, client-centric mission to the day-to-day. If you're just leading by mission and what are we going to get done, your entire team is fundamentally confused.
And I guess another thing that's important there too is it's not just someone can hear this and then just go and implement that, because you have to make sure that the targets that you're setting, I would presume, are quantifiable and measurable, and that the shorter time frame goals or targets directly roll up to the higher ones. And that is where I'm guessing a lot of the value comes in with working with you, because that in itself, like I've experienced the pain of that, where it's like, oh, we want to increase monthly recurring revenue. This is a target, but then trying to decompose, like, what are the things on a weekly basis that actually directly affect that monthly or quarterly MRR goal? That takes a little bit more of art and science, and you have to really be thoughtful and work with someone that knows what they're doing. Otherwise, if you just have like, hey, the weekly goal is to do this, but it has no direct correlation to the quarterly goal, you're kind of wasting your time.
Well, that's what you see in a lot of entrepreneurial businesses, especially when it's vision to day to day. You have a lot of stuff down here that's never going to get you here. And so what we do it's exactly what you said. Every day, productivity rolls up to a weekly commitment. Weekly commitments all fit within a 30-day goal. 30-day goals all fit within a 90-day target, and then they fit within your annual objectives. And so you're going to get there when you use our system. And Nick, here's the reality. If you don't have a strategic plan in the business, you will be the biggest bottleneck. And the number one complaint from entrepreneurs running businesses that are, around $1 million to 10 million and beyond is that they feel like they're the biggest bottleneck. They feel like they're holding the business back because they can't get everything they need to get done. And when you look at why, is if you don't have a strategic plan, your entire team has to go to you and ask you for what's next. They can't go forward. They don't know where you're going. And if you have a vision and a day-to-day, they can pretend like they know how to get to the vision, but you're going to have to literally do what we call transactional management.
No,
it's telling...
I'm not meaning to cut you off, but when you say strategic plan, is this purely on a company level, or do you also have departments do it? Like there's a marketing strategic plan. So then you take it high level on a company level, but then do departments also create these strategic plans as well?
That depends on the size of the company, Nick. Usually you don't have departmental strategic plans until around 10 million. We run everything on a central strategic plan, usually up to about that point.
Gotcha.
So, and there's definitely ways that it adjusts, like our system. And here's a key with what we do. We can start with companies in the several $100,000 range, get our systems into that business, and they can run it all the way up to whatever number they want. We've had companies start with us at a couple $1 million and take our systems all the way to 50. One of the hardest things with when you take systems into your business is you need to understand if they're scalable or not. And if your foundational systems like strategic planning, communication, how you build processes, how you achieve projects, and how you hire people, if those won't get you all the way, you're going to end up in a place where you need to replace your strategic planning system. And dude, replacing a planning system in a business is like replacing the engines on a plane while you're flying in midair and taking on passengers. It's going to be devastating. And so we want to make sure that people have consistency all the way through.
Okay, makes sense. I didn't mean to interrupt or go off on a tangent. So what are the other, you said there were 5 things.
Yeah. So the second one is communication system. Here's, the communication in 99% of small businesses, again, is haphazard. The team is waiting for word from on high. Depending on the CEO's personality, they either talk way too much or way too little, but the team doesn't really know what's significant or important because it hasn't been designated as such. And so we create a clear communication system where the team knows when they're going to hear from you, why they're going to hear from you, and what they're going to hear. And then that way they trust the process of communication in the business, and it increases clarity for the team, confidence for the team, and increases commitment. It literally gets you more out of the investment you're making in the team you have right now.
Man, we really have to collaborate because, I mean, you're saying verbatim stuff, but from a totally different vantage point. I think communication is like the most important thing in a company, but I have a book coming out in a few months called Come Up for Air, and it's my productivity framework, CPR, which is communicate, plan, and resource. And I start with the C because if you're not communicating well, you can't do anything. Like the company can't run if like communication lines are not well defined or efficient. But I'm doing it more from a technical point of view. So it's like, when should you use email? How should you use email? When should you use Slack? How should you use Slack? And if you're not using the right tool in the right context, a lot of people communicate in project management tools or they're project managing and communication tools. And when you don't set these things up in the right way, you actually could hurt productivities. But totally aligned with you that communication is really, like, if you don't have that in a company, you're really going to be struggling.
Well, and if you don't have a system, the way we have a meeting cadence that every one of our clients uses, and it's a meeting cadence that works in a way that here's the goal we have. Check this out, Nick. What we want to be able to have a CEO do, if you look at the CEO in an average business, they're spending 50 to 75% of their time just communicating what needs to happen. That in a 40-hour work year, if you're working 40 hours a week, that's about 1,000 hours a year. At the low end. If you're working 60 hours a week, it's 2,250 hours a year at the high end. That means it's 250 hours a year more than an average person works full time. And so when entrepreneurs say, I can't get everything done, there's the problem, but we don't feel it. We don't see it. We don't understand it. What we do with our communications cadence is we take that 1,000 to 2,250 average down to 300. And literally in a weekly time frame, as the CEO of a business, you'll have your weekly meeting, you'll have daily huddles each day, and then check-ins with the people that report to you, and that's it. Like, I don't have to interrupt my team the rest of the week. I don't have to really interact with my team the rest of the week unless we have a specific meeting around a project.
So when I speak about this topic, which is completely aligned with what you're saying, I say that one of the best ways to cut down on the noise and the distractions and productivity is you have an agenda tool, and I have some that I recommend. I've been using Fellow app, but there's a bunch. And if you get people to not distract you, but you have a formal meeting that you could put that idea that's non-urgent into the agenda, that's one of the best ways to save time, because a lot of time is wasted pulling people out of kind of their focus. And there's all those stats around if you're in a flow state and you get out of a flow state. So having a scheduled meeting with an agenda and giving people the space to put things that they want to cover. One thing that I'm just at the beginning of starting to do at my company, I'm curious if you have done this with companies, but I'm trying to facilitate an experiment where we do ticketing system for the most part, instead of directly asking people questions for multiple reasons. So if you, instead of going and asking the head of finance a payroll question, creating a ticket, that way if that person's sick or quits or whatever, you've trained people to think in terms of support tickets always at one place, and then we can triage behind the scenes.
That's interesting. We've never tried anything like that. See, I think our system's a little different, Nick, because it starts with a plan.
Yeah.
Here's what happens when you have a strategic plan. Check this out. Like you said your CPR was communicate, plan, and resource. Well, we put strategic plan in front of that. So plan strategically, then communicate, then get the right processes, projects, and people in place. And here's what happens when you have a plan. Ideas are not that important anymore. We have a plan. And this got a minute is not that important anymore. We have a plan. And, the stuff that we might distract ourselves with today is not that critical because we have a plan. And so noise in a company, having a strategic plan is like a noise vacuum out of a company, because now people know where they're going. They know what's next. They know what the objectives are, and they know what role they play.
I guess the only problem that I have with it is it messes up my nice acronym. And
This podcast is sponsored by GetLeverage.com. Looking for more help with your marketing efforts? From a blog post to social media strategy, we have someone to start on your project this week. Head to GetLeverage.com and get in touch.
All right. So what's the third one?
So the third one is a system to identify and document critical processes in a company.
Okay, I think that's my R when I call resources documenting knowledge.
So here's I think pretty much every entrepreneur has either read or heard about the E-Myth. And I think that, Gerber did an incredible job of communicating that you should have processes in a business. But the challenge is the way that it was communicated, it feels like you need to do it all at once and right away, or shut the company down, document everything, and then open back up. Gerber's got you aiming at your 1,000th location when you're starting to get off the ground. And so what we have is a system where every month a business can analyze what are the critical processes we need to have documented this month, and then they break off that piece, document them, and then move forward. And by documenting processes, you start to actually build the infrastructure of a company. Most businesses in the United States don't have an infrastructure. They have people. And people are not an infrastructure. People can manipulate an infrastructure. They can drive an infrastructure, but they're not the infrastructure. And so by building processes, you create the business.
So I separate process into twofold, static and dynamic. So what I call by that is who, what, when, where, why is static. So what's the company vision? What's the strategy? What's the Wi-Fi password? Where's the office? But then how is what I call dynamic. That's how do you do payroll? How do you onboard someone? And that's a dynamic sequence of steps that you want to have like a checklist for. And we have tools that we recommend for each of these. But what we've been trying to do, and I got this from the days of being a trader, I used to have to take a 2-week block leave when I was a trader and document my book, and then someone else would have to trade for my book. And that was to make sure I wasn't hiding trades. And every time I came back, there was an improvement to my algorithm. And aside from the de-risking aspect of documenting process or the efficiency of when you hire someone, you don't have to waste your time re-explaining. When it's documented, you can start rotating. So at Leverage, every quarter we rotate positions, we make people follow each other's process. And that's sparked so many of the ideas for improving process inside of the company. And you can only do that if you follow what you're saying in your system and you facilitate a culture of documenting. Because otherwise, how can you improve something that you don't really have anything to base it off of? You don't have anything documented to pick it up and do it.
Well, Nick, here's what we found is just the process of documenting improves the process. So we have clients, their names are Ryan Lee and Brad Gibb and Jimmy Vreeland, and they run a financial company with a real estate arm. They're about a $10 million a year business. Before we started working with them to take on a client, it took them somewhere between 4 to 8 hours with inconsistent results. We had them document their process. Get this, from 4 to 8 hours with inconsistent results to 20 to 45 minutes with 100% consistent results, and they weren't involved anymore. And so just by going through the documentation process, you can significantly change your business.
100%. And there's a book, The Checklist Manifesto, and if you ever read that, they by putting checklists into surgical rooms, it cut down 70% of surgical errors.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so we use Process Street for that because we have a distributed team all over the world. And Katie and I have always run every business we've had via checklists and process documents. Well, today, printing them and handing them to somebody is near impossible for us. I'd have to fly to like Ireland to do it in some cases. So we use Process Street, and it's just consistent, and it's completely transformed how we do processes.
So Vinay, the CEO, came to the event I threw last month, and he gave a talk on process. And then we had a breakout room where we just did process hacking with people.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
And what's cool with Process Street is it also integrates with a tool called Zapier. So you can start automating steps, right? So like if a step is send an email to someone to do something, you click a button and then you can automate various triggers to happen.
Yeah, no question. Process Streets, and if you have a distributed team around the world, which these days, people ask me all the time, should I go in person or virtual? If you have the opportunity to go virtual, it is so much better. So much better. I think a lot of entrepreneurs experience anxiety around it, but it's so much better to run a company virtually. Not that you have to. Half of our clients are in person, but today, the amount of talent you have access to, the amount of knowledge you have access to, if you can go virtual and go anywhere in the world, our designer is the best one I've ever worked with. She's in Ireland.
Well, it's definitely the way of the future. It comes with challenges in terms of you have to know, you have to be set up from a tech and just infrastructure point of view to support it. Otherwise, but if you do have that, it's nothing is better because also you'll attract better talent. Like if someone can make the same amount of money and in job A, they have to go to a cubicle, which is an hour commute versus job B, they can take their family down to Costa Rica and like work from a beach and get it all done, for the same money, they're going to probably choose B.
Yeah. One of my team members is in Boulder right now, living out of a friend's house and just like hanging out for a couple of months. And he actually took a significant decrease in his salary to start working with us because he wanted to have a life where he wasn't tied to a cubicle, where he didn't have to go in for meetings, where he didn't have to deal with office politics. I mean, let's get real. The whole thing it's not, there's definitely positives to having people in person. There's also a lot of challenges, especially for the team members.
Totally. All right. What's number 4?
So number 4 is a system to consistently analyze the business and execute the projects that are going to move you forward the most in any given time. And here's the challenge for most entrepreneurs. Projects are executed based on feel or intuition or the last event or mastermind that somebody went to. When you look at how most projects are selected, it's like, oh, I talked to a friend of mine, they're doing this, we need to do this too. And so then they get excited, do it in their business. And a lot of times they execute the project perfectly and get absolutely no result out of it and wonder why. Well, here's the challenge. You can crush a project, but if it's not what your business needs right now, you're going to spend time, money, effort, focus, resources, and cash, and then execute something and feel no increase in forward velocity, no momentum. And it's depressing. You talk to entrepreneurs, they talk about that all the time. Like we're working our butts off, but we're not getting, we're not moving the bar. And the reason is they're typically executing a project that might be a good project in the business someday, but right now it's not right for where the business is.
So do you teach a framework for prioritization of projects?
We do.
Yeah. Super valuable.
Yeah, I'm happy to share it. So Nick, we simplify everything. And one of our core values as a company is Occam was right. Like simplicity is where you should be, minimum effective dose. And so we analyze companies using the 5 core functions. The 5 core functions of a business are, number 1 is lead generation. What do you do to find somebody that you can sell to that gives you permission to talk to them? Number 2 is lead nurture. What are you doing to talk to that person, communicate with that person until they decide to buy? The 3rd one is conversion, like what the active sale. Then there's delivery and retention, resell, and upsell. So on a quarterly basis, we have the companies we work with analyze where am I on lead gen, nurture, conversion, delivery, retention, resell, and upsell. And that is what we use for everything. That's what we use to build the strategic plan, to select the right processes, to select the right projects. And then the 5th one is to hire the right people.
That's awesome. So that's quarterly that you reevaluate that. And is that like you take one day out quarterly? Is that like a one-day process or a couple hours or a couple days? How does that work?
Couple hours. When we say minimum effective dose, we mean it. The playing field in a business is not the planning room. The playing field in a business is execution and getting things done. And in far too many small businesses, you have like 3-day offsites. And what happens when you go to a 3-day offsite, you've just taught your team planning is most important, not execution. Like what we're doing here is most important. We're offsite planning. This is where we really want to put the focus. And the fact is, in most small businesses, 3-day planning meetings or even day-long planning meetings end up in like conflict and frustration, and people don't really understand why they're there. And so we have a minimum effective dose cadence that quarterly meetings, when you're doing that analysis and setting up your outcomes for the quarter, takes about an hour and a half. Monthly meetings might take about 2 hours because there's a little bit more. Weekly meetings take an hour. So, and they're quick. There's cadence-based. There's a choreography for every single meeting. We don't even call them meetings. We call them targeted interactions because meetings suck. When I was a consultant in corporate America, one of the things I would watch is as we walked into meetings, people would lean over to each other and say like, hey, what are we doing here? What do I need to know? That's walking into a meeting. It's not going to be successful when people don't even understand what it is. In the cadence we teach, there is no ambiguity as to what the outcome is for everything you do.
Not only that, people don't realize too, like the amount of wasted money in companies from ineffective meetings and having too many people that don't need to be there or no agenda, and then it takes twice as long. If the average hourly rate's $50 an hour of those people and you waste 5 man hours in that one meeting, that's like a $250 waste, times that by however many meetings you're doing on a quarterly basis. I mean, it adds up really quickly how much money you waste in meetings.
Nick, let's expand that out to a full day.
Yeah.
Now you're at $2,000. Let's expand that out to a 3-day offsite. Now you're at $6,000. And travel and time out of the office and lost productivity and everything else. The way we look at it is meetings, planning meetings should be They shouldn't be an event. They should be a process.
We try to limit meetings as much as possible and do things asynchronous. So we probably should pick this back up, but there's Slack bots that can we try to keep everything as asynchronous as possible. So for instance, one thing we have experimented with, we're probably going to circle back, is having a bot that just messages you, like, what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? What are you blocked on? So that you don't need necessarily a meeting, but the bot can collect answers and give you the results of that. Or we've cut down a lot of one-on-one meetings by having the team just record a 2-minute video of themselves explaining kind of what was the big outcome of the week or what are they blocked on. And then on my own time, when I'm in a cab or whatever, not taking up precious 9 to 5 on Monday time, watching the video and kind of getting the updates that way.
That's interesting. I don't know that we would ever do that. We're so focused on the human aspect of business that I think sometimes in some businesses, we've seen technology just be used, it's overused. Elon Musk tried to build the world's first automated car factory. And what do you have to do? Rip all the shit out and bring people in, that's, reality is you can kind of get to a place where you remove the human aspect. So what we do in our cadence is every team member has a one-on-one with their supervisor every week. It's 30 minutes. And it's for that team member. So when you look at an annual investment in time in that team member, it's 25 hours. But with 25 hours a year, they have a person who is listening to them, understanding them. So no one on our team goes forgotten. And they always have a personal interaction, and we build relationships. Relationships in a bit, people don't talk about building relationships in a business. And it's one of the most critical aspects of leadership. And one of the most critical aspects of building a long-term organization is that you understand the people who are working for you or working with you at a level where you can truly support them. So we're fanatic about personal interaction and actually having human contact.
Yeah, I'm really curious to learn more about your system. I didn't mean to say that it's a balance, and we do both, right? So we cut down on we used to do a 1 hour one-on-one every week. That's now cut to 30 minutes. Plus they send the video on top of it. And that video kind of covers a good part of what would have taken up that full 1 hour.
Here's what's interesting, Nick. In our process, because it starts with a strategic plan, and because each person starts with a list of weekly commitments, we already know what they're doing. They don't need to say, hey, this is what I did yesterday. This is what I did today. This is where I'm stuck, because we already know. We can watch it get checked off on our weekly commitment board. And so each person knows their outcomes for the week. And then on that 30-minute call, that's where their supervisor's coaching anywhere that they're stuck or anything that hasn't gone through. And then we also, at the end of each week, we get a weekly report from each team member that is distributed to the entire team. So you turn it in and it goes back out to everybody. And so if anyone wants to know what's going on with any person, we have a weekly report where we answer 2 simple questions. That's it. The first one is what went right. And the second one is where you need support to move forward. So what we're looking for is what created momentum this week and where do you feel constrained? And then we're all reading it as a team. I read most of them. I read everyone in leadership. And then every leader is reading all of their team. And then usually peripheral people that are working with their team as well. And so that weekly reporting system is where we distribute what each person's done to the team.
Very interesting. And what's the 5th one? There's a 5th one, right?
People.
Or was that the 5th?
The 5th one is people. Yeah, the 5th one is a system to analyze what people you need, and then to go out and recruit them, hire them, onboard them, and get them productive really fast. At corporate America, the estimate is that when you hire someone, they will be productive within 6 months. In an entrepreneurial business, people like you and I won't wait 6 days. And so we have a system. So one, to analyze who you need to hire, then to create an accurate description of what they'll do, bring them in and onboard them to the point where they're I'll give you an example. We recently brought in a sales rep. His first 7 days, he was not on phone calls. He was doing training and getting orientation. His 8th day, he was on sales calls. He didn't sell anything. His 9th day, he sold a $30,000 package. And since then, his conversion rates, it's where we want it to be. And so we get people up and running fast, and we get them effective really fast. Otherwise, I lose sleep.
Well, and part of the reason why you're probably able to do that is because you're using tools like Process Treat, and you have really efficient ways to onboard people.
And one of the critical processes that's documented is our sales call. Like we have a flow chart for the sales call. We have a script for the sales call. There's no ambiguity as to what's going to be said and how it's going to be said.
Totally. And one of the key metrics that we're looking at too is not just client churn, but team member churn, because if it does take 3 months before you get any ROI on someone, let's say, and you can extend the retention of an employee from 12 months to 18 months, well, on 12 months, if it takes 3 months to ramp them up, you're only getting 75% utilization out of them. But if you move it to 18 months, then that 3 month upfront becomes less and less of a percentage of that, right?
Yeah, and if you can take that 3 months and turn it into a couple weeks.
Yeah, so I mean, if you can move either lever, you're doing well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. That was the fifth one, people.
It's people, and it's selecting. It's getting not just knowing who to hire, but knowing how to interview, onboard, and bring them onto the team so that productivity happens fast. That's really
smart. All right. Well, where can people find out about you? I know you're launching a new product or a new service that I would like you to share with the audience. You're having an event in September, which I'm going to be coming to. And then also you might be coming to my event. We're not sure yet if there's a conflict, October 16th to 18th in Nashville, if people want to meet you in person at any of those. But what's the new product that's coming out in the next couple of weeks?
So we have a new product called the Billionaire. So all of our products are called Billionaire Code because that's a matrix we use to show people where they are in their entrepreneurial journey. And so we have a Billionaire Code Foundation product. And what it does is it puts a process in place in any business for this first one, strategic planning. So what that product will do is show someone how to create a strategic plan that they can distribute to their team where everyone knows where they're going. And we will solve that issue from how do you get from the Hall of Fame to the day-to-day workout. And we'll show you how to go from client-centric mission all the way down to daily productivity. And for the beta, which is launching next week, I'm doing 6 weeks of personal coaching with the group. And the beta product is going to be sold at $2,000. We're raising it to $3,000 after the beta. So Nick, for 6 weeks of coaching with me in a group, we've never done anything as low as $2,000 for a business product. But we're doing this. We want to get a lot of attention around the fact that if you don't have a plan, you don't know where you're going. And there's so many people that sell entrepreneurs all types of outcomes like marketing and hiring and whatever it is in the business that sound exciting. But if it's not part of an integrated plan, you are just running project after project haphazardly that usually a lot of times can conflict with each other and steal resources from each other. So the foundation product is going to give people a clear strategic plan that everyone in their team will know exactly where the business is going and what role they play.
And where can people, and then also what are the dates of the September event and what's that about?
So the September event is the event that we deliver to our high-level coaching clients. And what we do each time we have that event, we have a few people who join it from the outside who aren't part of our coaching programs. And so if anybody's interested in either the foundation program or our event, they can go to billionairecode.com. And that is a standard, we send everybody to billionairecode.com because here's what we'll give you. We'll give you the matrix of the 9 levels you go through to go from 0 to 100 million as an entrepreneur. We'll give you the ebook that backs it up. And then you can answer some questions for my team and you'll be part of our database and we'll make sure that we get that stuff out to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining today. This was awesome. I can't wait to see you in September. And just thanks for dropping all this knowledge on the Leverage podcast today.
You got it, Nick. It's rare that I talk to somebody that I have the level of alignment that I have with you. It's funny how even our acronyms and our internal systems and stuff, we could pretty much throw them all up on a wall and draw lines in between them. And I think it's because when you know how to grow a business, let's be honest, the levers are all the same.
Well, look, like we have different ways of saying things and you're coming at this much more from a strategic and human aspect. I'm obviously, being an engineer, coming at things from like automation, technology stuff. But the fact that out of your 5, communication and process are, 2 of your 5, and like those are the 2 things out of CPR, right? And then actually planning is my P, which is what you called strategic plan. I mean, like there's a lot of overlap here, just coming at it from a different vantage point. So Really, always a pleasure to speak to you.
Always, Nick. I hope to do it again soon, man.
Sounds good.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Leverage Podcast. Leverage is an on-demand outsourcing platform that helps small business owners and entrepreneurs scale their business. We have a team of experts that can help set up marketing sales funnels, email marketing, podcasts, social media, paid media, and much more. Grow your business overnight with a team of experts you can trust to deliver. Accomplish more. Visit getleverage.com.